knowledgeable. The co-facilitator today. I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to Kim so that she can take us through our housekeeping.
Happy to. Thank you, Nicole, and good morning, everyone. 9 a.m. for those of you in the Midwest, and of course, 7 a.m. for those early birds on the West Coast. So welcome, welcome. I'll be assisting with that technology today, and of course, happy to walk us through our housekeeping today. So please go ahead and do what you can to minimize distractions right now, whether that means putting yourself on do not disturb for your status within Teams. That way you don't get IMs or phone calls during your meeting. You could also make sure that your cell phone is silenced. And if possible, use a headset if you're in an area where there might be other noise, perhaps people working in the same environment, or children or pets running through if you're working from home. Go ahead and also keep your chat open at all times. We would ask for you to stay engaged with us today. What we need from you is, if you have a question, please throw it in the chat or raise your hand. If you have an idea or some feedback for us, we'd love to hear it. In fact, I think that these sessions are the most powerful when we all engage together and try to learn from one another. So don't be shy if you have an idea or a question today. On that note, how you can interact with us is at the top here. This is week 3, guys. I know that I don't need to drain this slide on what these things mean, but go ahead and throw me a reaction right now. If you are awake, if you are drinking your coffee, getting hydrated with your water. Okay, we're all here. Appreciate you. Make sure that your camera is on. Make sure that your microphone is muted at all times. All right, last but certainly not least, the attendance note. So a reminder for you, if you are going for your training bonus, you cannot miss more than 10 minutes of this session. It's not Nicole, it's not Kim, or any of us in the back trying to track your attendance. It's actually the system itself. So it knows when you enter, it knows when you leave, or if you get a phone call in the middle and you step away, any of those things will be tracking against your time. So you want to make sure you're not missing any more than 9 minutes and 59 seconds, because the minute you miss that 10-minute mark, you will be counted as not complete for this course, and I would hate for that to happen to you. So if you're having any technology glitches or issues in your computer restarts or anything like that, please let Nicole or myself know. I'll be here in the background, so just send me an IM on Teams and I'll help you troubleshoot whatever issue you are facing. On that note, I will hand things back over to Nicole and we will get this session started.
Thank you so much, Kim. All right, everyone, we are going to start today with a few minutes from our Life Company speaker, and that is OJ Slavish. And he will talk about our opportunities with core clients and the importance of pivoting to the life insurance conversation, the importance of educating clients about their life insurance options, and helping them transition through the underwriting process. We will then get into core client prospecting and the difference between in-book and out-of-book prospecting. This is going to give you a chance to practice a little bit for developing those prospecting strategies by looking at those different examples. We'll also go through the DIME approach and offer some insight about completing the Your Life Insurance number, the YLIN activity with those clients and those prospects. We will then end this lesson by previewing what we will be doing next before we address any further questions. Any questions about our agenda before I hand the reins over to our guest speaker? All right, since we are ready to move forward, I am proud to introduce to you OJ Slavish with our life insurance company to talk to you about working with those core clients. OJ, the floor is yours.
Hello, greetings. I'm gonna steal the screen here and share some slides. In here, there we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you guys. Welcome to Country Financial. Welcome to the Life Conversation. I just want to make sure that we're making time to talk about why we do what we do, who our core clients are, what's happening in the life company, and spend a little time on some of that stuff here. So starting with why, like I got into this industry for very specific reasons. hopefully, you know who this guy is that's on the screen. If you don't, his name is Simon Sinek. He wrote a really good book, and I don't get any commissions off of selling this book, but if you want to go out there and get a copy, feel free. It really gets down to the what is your purpose? And your purpose can be a lot of different things. It could be like I'm just passionate about life insurance. I grew up as a little boy in grade school saying I want to be a life insurance agent. That's great. I love that. People like me, like my why is I love to help people. I want them to succeed. And if your passion is I want to make a lot of money and I want to be on the trips and take care of my family, that's a great why too. You can do that here, and that's awesome. So my passion for the insurance and financial planning industry came from a very specific path. I was a leader in a grocery store. So I came from a different background in insurance, and I'm sure some of you have too. I'd love to know what brought you here. So if you want to use the chat and just tell me where are you coming from? Are you coming from the insurance industry? Are you coming from somewhere else like I did? But for me, while you do that, type it in the chat. It's about being a manager at a grocery store, and when you're one of those, you wear a lot of hats, including the HR hat. And so for me, it was a very critical moment where I had a manager that worked the third shift. I came in the morning, so we usually saw each other passing by. He was about my age. He was newly married, having a little baby girl. And one day, I said, hey, see you later. Next time I'll catch you tomorrow. He went home, went to bed, never woke up again. He had an undiagnosed heart condition, and he passed away. And as the person who does the things in the store, I was the person who got the check for the group life insurance coverage that he had through us for $50,000. And so when I handed the check to his widow and his daughter, it was very emotional, of course, but that check really needed to have some more zeros on it. I'm glad he had it, but it really needed a couple zeros on the end of it to make sure they were really truly taken care of. But that was the only coverage he had. And looking at oh my gosh, it's a situation that can happen to anybody, and I want to make sure people take care of. I looked at the employee rolls of 300 people, and this group life insurance coverage, it's super cheap, as you guys know or will learn. It was only there while you work there, and it was $120 a month. That's it. And of 300 people, I probably only had about 75 that had it. So it kind of became a mission. I'm this is crazy. You're nuts. If you don't take out this, you got to get it. Blah, blah, blah. That rolled into several other conversations about investments, their 401ks, people that weren't contributing. And then I just kind of started going down the path like everybody's financial advisor all of a sudden. And when I got tired of working retail, if some of you see hospitality, accounting, insurance industry, that's great. Category buyer, procurement, wholesale grocery, we're friends. Megan, we need to talk. But got into this industry because I learned I could help people, and this thing that I was becoming very passionate about, helping them protect themselves and the plan for their future. I could do that for a living. So that was awesome. That's how I got into the industry. That powers my why. But then, thinking about people and clients, what do you think their why is on why I buy life insurance? Who do they buy it for? When do they buy it? So again, use the chat here, why should people buy life insurance? It's in sense security. People type them. Protects assets. Take burden off of others, take care of loved ones. Yeah, these are fantastic answers. You guys are hitting the nail on the head. Life insurance is the only thing that can create an instant pile of money that can take care of things, take care of assets, take care of people, take care of loved ones, take care of mortgages, take care of the family farm, all of those things. You know, and we buy it for those that we leave behind. So when is the best time to buy life insurance? This is a trick question. I see Kim's typing, that's not fair. Did you know the answer? Oh, you stole it right out of them. Yeah, now yesterday's better because you're never going to be healthier than you are today. I mean, that's fact. Like, generally, people do not get healthier, and you definitely don't get younger. And those are the two factors that determine how much you pay for life insurance. And you know, this is a tough environment still right now. I mean, inflation costs are high, cost of living adjustments are high. People may feel strapped for cash, but life insurance is not as expensive as they think it is. And taking care of your family provides security and peace of mind. It's the foundation, the base of building a financial future. And you know, when we think about that, we've got to think about that who should we be talking to? And country, we've got a pretty like succinct group that we want to talk to. Like, of course, I want you to talk to everybody. You should definitely talk to everyone about life insurance. But at country, we focus in on these specific groups. And so again, use the chat here. Why should the homeowners buy life insurance? What should be their why? Or could be their why? That's got it. Christy's got it. Jimmy's got it. Yeah, paying off debt. Like, I mean, that's generally the biggest, you know, expense debt that people have is their house. You know, if you want to make sure that your loved ones, that's another answer. They buy it for their loved ones, then should ensure that they're going to stay in that house. They're covered. It also has to do with like protecting that family, future insurability of children, estate planning, people with special needs, you know, children with special needs. But you know, all of those things are taking care of somebody else. You know, taking care of that other person or their family, making sure things are taken care of. How about a farmer? What's different about a farmer than somebody that's just a homeowner? What would their insurance be? Christine is on the call. Debt, taxes, legacy, yep. Loss of crops. There are so many things that a farmer gets hit with in life. I mean, they've got massive amounts of debt generally, because running a business, you run it off of debt, off credit. Equipment, I mean, those combines. I'm not in the market for a combine. I haven't bought one in a while, but I hear that they cost like 300 grand or more. I don't necessarily have that in my bank account to go buy one for cash, so you're gonna have to finance that. So equipment costs, land costs, all the different things that a farmer would have debt for. Legacy, they generally want to pass these on. I mean, there's family farms that are in the family for hundreds of years. You saw Country News today that Raider Farms here in Big Ten is a multi-generational farm. We're got some kind of partnership with, you know, ensuring that farm can pass to the next generation. Taxes are an important factor, and again, you can instantly provide that wealth need with a life insurance policy. Business owners, how about business owners? Like, what's unique and different about them?
I'm doing my best not to answer every question, OJ. Doing my best.
Okay. Just answer any question you want to answer. I only give out country bucks for writing. So I haven't figured out what they equate to yet, like penny on the dollar. In terms of key employees, great answer. That's a great one. Like a business can sometimes be dependent on an individual that like makes that business continue to run, like the top salesperson, or this person brings in X to the business, and if they disappeared, like the business would be substantially hurt. Also, partners buy sell agreements. Worst thing you could possibly do is have like two business partners in business together, and one of them passes away, and now all of a sudden, one of the owners is in business with that person's spouse. That may not work out great. That can be terrible. Like protecting that business to continue to operate. It's much like a barber, very similar. Generally, business owners want to be able to pass on the business to the next generation or to someone else. They want to protect it in case something happens to one of their top people. They can use it as a benefits package to keep people there. I mean, if you've heard of golden handcuffs with pensions, similar types of things are available with life insurance. So there's lots of additional needs out there. It's not just one thing. It's a multifaceted tool, life insurance is. And so the biggest thing I can say about this is go out and ask questions. Talk to people. Talk to them about what's your insurance package look like? How are you protecting your family? What do you think would happen if you don't come home tonight? Sounds really simple. Hard to do when you got that person across from you, because nobody wants to talk about death. They do want to talk about protecting their families. They do want to talk about protecting their business, their farm. So protection is a great way to dig back into that conversation. Many others that are out there, and these trainers from agency training and more that you'll learn are going to help you with that. But as the manager of life and business, my job is to focus in on the operations. So getting the application from submission to policy is one of my groups. I have another group that is called case managers. They're like your point of contact out there in the field when a case is stuck, or I've got questions, something doesn't seem to be adding up right here. Getting this case from submitted to paid. They're your first point of contact. They're your quarterback in the home office to help you. But when we talk about the operations, we've done a lot of work in the last 5 years. You're going to totally benefit from this. You didn't have to go through the old way of doing things with paper and a system that literally looked like it was from 1985. Kim, you got a question? Oh, it's just background.
I just wanted to praise the new streamlined process we have for this.
Yeah. As we move to like a more modern system that works not only for you in the field, but for our clients, we're focused on creating a less invasive, faster, and easier experience. So, life's a journey. We want to enjoy the ride. We don't want to make this a painful process. Nobody likes giving out all their medical information. Nobody likes to get stuck with a needle and do all that stuff. So we've been on a mission to make that easier for the last 5 years. So we've totally replaced our illustration system with a completely new system. And I think off the next slide here. So modern systems, updated products, better client experience. Like I said, our illustration system is top notch. It's the top line illustration system in the industry. We created illustrations that have stories that sell. So you can take the illustration and literally walk the client through with pictures and explanations of how the writers work that are plain language, easy to understand. It's a way to it's marketing material and an illustration together. Then that illustration is totally connected to the e-application system. So it's kind of like TurboTax. It's going to ask you some questions, fill in the blanks, and it will add additional forms as you need them, or subtract them because you don't need them. So it helps that application come to us in the home office in good order every time. Like our write back rate right now on this new system, so the application is under 5%. So we're in single digits for like having to go back and ask more questions or the wrong stuff got submitted. So it's making a better experience, less signatures for the client, less work for you in the field as the rep. We took out the Part B. So if you're not familiar with it, there's Part A, which is the actual application. Part B is where they ask all these medical questions, right? The medical, online medical interview is the newest, greatest, latest thing that we've got. Launched in October. Within 5 minutes of you hitting submit on the application, there's an email to the client asking them to complete this medical interview online. So it's going to ask them all the medical questions. They can do it with their mobile device. They can literally have it done in like less than 30 minutes if they're pretty healthy, shorter than that. If they've got a lot of medications or been to the doctor a lot, it's going to take a little bit longer, but they can get it done at their leisure. They can get it done right then and there at your office. They can get it done at midnight. They don't have to wait for a phone call or a person to talk to them. Just get it done very, very fast. And then we focused on a couple of different underwriting methods. They're simplified, where there's no medical interview, no labs. So under $100,000 application, if you go through this decision engine based on the information we pull electronically and have a decision within 5 minutes of whether they're approved or not. Accelerated builds up to 1 million right now. Later this year, it will be 2 million. And of death benefit application. It still will have a medical interview, but if they pass all the checks and the medical interview looks pretty clean, no labs are required. And we're exploring how to make that funnel even bigger every month. So very digital experience, very fast. Right now, the record from proposing an illustration, applying through the e-application system, and getting a decision back, 45 minutes. That's pretty good. That's way faster than the normal 21 days 5 years ago. So getting a lot faster, getting a lot better at this, and that's a better experience for you in our field, and it's a better experience for our clients. So coming a long way, and we're not done yet. We just did a bunch of work for like what's the next thing, and so I'm not gonna spill the beans on what's coming next, but it's gonna be pretty cool. Overall, I'd say like follow the facts with life insurance. The data tells us that most people still need coverage, so this is not a niche market where you're trying to find people. 42% of Americans still say that they need insurance coverage or more. It's like across all generations, so don't feel like I've got to look for just young people, but anywhere in the spectrum, you can see it's about half of people still say they need life insurance coverage. So the market for this is huge. The big thing is asking the questions, getting from that property casualty consultation to asking about their life insurance coverage. And that if you can make that pivot, you're going to be very successful with selling life insurance, successful in this company. So lastly, I'm gonna preview a group that you're gonna meet a little bit later. So this is the life case management team. One of the teams that I have, they're split into different regions. So they're very uniquely set to like just you. If you're in the Western region, you've got Ana Lopez as the senior case manager. Central, it's Yana Tompkins. Southern, it's Lexi Martinez. If you have the issues, so you like struggle with administration, it's not quite working out the way you want it to, the application systems, maybe, I don't know, something happened in there that you've got a question. The labs aren't working, where the lab company and vendors trying to reach out to the client, but they're not finding the time to meet with the client. There's some sort of issue. This is the team that you call. They are the problem solvers. They will walk you through like what needs to be walked through. Online, they'll pop up and share screens with you for that kind of stuff. If there's a problem with the vendor, they'll get a hold of the vendor. They'll escalate it to the our connection with the vendor to like, you need to resolve this problem. This is not us to solve, this is you to solve. And then they're gonna get answers back. They solve problems all day, every day. And it's been focused on new business for a long time. but coming here in the next month, they're also going to be working on policy servicing. So we've got a large block of business that's already been in force for a long time. You might have inherited some book of business. There's lots of different series of policies out there, lots of different types of policies that we've had over the years. They are expert level in all of that stuff. So if there's like, can I do X with this policy? This is going to be the team to call. They've been training for about a year to do that. That's a lot of training for them to take on. And they're ready to start getting those calls, getting those conversations now. We're working on the communication to send that out. So that's a preview for you. But that's the team that you should be working with. If you've got any issues, problems, they're going to solve. So you'll get to meet a couple of them maybe later today. But I'll leave you with this, and I'll drop these. These are some links. I'll drop these into the chat for you. There's tons of resources out there for you to get familiar with our products, how they work, especially the new products, and some of the cross trainings that are out there, and then of course how to get a hold of this team. That's going to help you. I'll drop those into the chat for you. And really, I appreciate you guys being in the seats you're in. I've been there before as a country rep myself. And, you know, I'm excited to see your first apps come through. If you got any questions, you can always get a hold of me. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, OJ. Everyone, if you could please give a tremendous round of applause for OJ taking time out of his day to be here with us. So OJ, if you could go ahead and stop sharing so I can get those slides reloaded. Do we have any questions while the slides are loading for OJ before I reload our PowerPoint slide? No questions coming in? All right, OJ, thank you again so much for being here with us today. We really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Now that we have discussed the importance of pivoting to life insurance conversation, and we heard some really great tips from OJ, we're going to talk more specifically about life prospecting for our core clients. Now, the web-based courses that you took in the PDC mentioned prospecting both in-book and out-of-book. And in-book prospects refer to those current clients that you have with whom we can discuss life insurance possibilities. And those out-of-book prospects are individuals that are outside the country. So what we're going to do now is Kim is going to take you through a little mini activity. So Kim, the floor is yours.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, for our activity today, I'm going to give you a couple different client types, and I'm hoping that you can help me just kind of brainstorm some ways that we would want to really bring up life insurance with this type of client. So kind of giving you a few ideas and strategies on how you're going to prospect, what you're going to say, other things you plan to do in order to get in front of this client type. So as Nicole said, we've got the in-book clients. So these are your existing clients that already have, pardon me, already have a country policy. So you can imagine that maybe they already have their auto and home with you, and you're trying to figure out a way that you want to get in front of them and have that conversation about life insurance. So what are some ideas that you have? Go ahead and you can give me a raised hand, or you can use a chat, whichever you're more comfortable with. But I'm looking for some different ideas on how you're going to approach these clients. Oh, we have a bundling discount. So Ari's going to use some sort of campaign to get in front of them for the multi-policy discount. Fantastic. During the car appointments. Okay, so that's maybe part of Christy's strategy during her car process, right? Making sure she's bringing up this life insurance number or conversation with every client during the car. I like that. I see a few more people typing, so I'll wait a second more and get some more ideas here on the first client type. Yeah, make it a part of a service call. Well done, Bill. Reviewing with them So a service call is in, like, Bill, why don't you come up with me for me and just talk to me a little bit about. So are you saying like you're servicing them, like they called in with a change or a billing question and you're just kind of turning it into service, or what do you mean by that?
Like an opportunity when like their, say their house price went up on their house, and so you're calling to see how you can help them with that situation. And then in the context of that, talk about how life can also be an opportunity for income replacement plus give you a discount on your home policy.
Love it. Yeah. Great way to, be servicing, having that touch point, but also cross-selling, making that conversation really intentional for you. Paying off mortgage if one of them passes. Absolutely. So you rent the home for the first time. So when Stacy rents a home, she's going to talk about, hey, did you know that you can also pay off your mortgage with this in case one of you on this house would pass away? Ooh, Steven's coming with a probing question. Do you care if your family is taken care of, right? Have you ever thought about that before? Many people haven't. Usually for first-time home buyers or early in their adulthood and starting these things for the first time, they may never have even considered what could be if they weren't here. So I love the probing questions. So prospecting, you can certainly use leads activities in your CRM as well to target some of those monoline businesses, right? So if you have, clients that only have home or only have auto, helping to pivot to them, you could have some targeting strategies there. So I really like that. And then those probing questions are so powerful, right? So whenever you're having those car appointments, those service calls, asking a few questions that make them think a little bit, right? Trying to set that next appointment to talk about what is your life insurance program. That was one of my favorite questions in the field. It's just asking that in every client appointment. If I was writing your home or auto for the first time, that's great, but I'd be just curious. Do you have life insurance elsewhere? What's your current program look like? Okay. So cool, nice job on that first one. Let's go to the second client type. So this one's that out of book client, but it's a core client. So this might think of like a homeowner, a farmer, or one of those business owners that you know in your community. So you don't currently serve them as the insurance agent. You're maybe just a friend or a patron at their shop. Maybe they're a coffee shop owner. Maybe they're a neighbor that owns a farm, or you meet them at the chamber and you know that they own a home. Like, how are you going to get in front of these clients that you want to win their business and you want to talk about their life insurance? A little bit different approach, right? You don't currently have their home or auto. Any ideas on how you're going to get in front of them? What's your strategy to get in front of these people?
It's a good one.
Oh, come on, guys. Don't make me like someone. I don't want to pick on someone. I'm waiting for some volunteers. I would still ask, yeah. Powerful question. Oh, lots of typing now. Appreciate you guys. I see it. I'm gonna wait. Would have been a little bit faster, just a little bit if someone would raise their hand with me, but that's okay. Let potential customers know all about your offerings, right? They might not know all the things that you do. That is such a true statement there. I think I mentioned this the other day, possibly in this class, but it drove me crazy when one of my home or auto clients would buy life insurance elsewhere. That is what I want to be selling to them, right? It was never off of my list of wanting to do that. And so whenever that would happen, I'd go, oh my gosh, how did you not know that I offer that? And they just forget, right? If you're not top of mind, if you're not staying in front of it, even if you say it in that first appointment, they will forget. So you have to be, really intentional about your strategy to get in front of them, or let them know what it is that you offer. What would happen if All right, Jimmy. Talk to me. What do you mean by that?
Well,
What
like-
are you saying that? Are you just in a conversation at the coffee shop, or how are you approaching that question to them?
Yeah, like what would happen if their key person ended up dying? Like, are for their business and what would happen for their home if or are they covered or do they have a multi-policy just like everybody else is saying in the chat?
I love it. Yes. You know, one of our trainers, he calls it his what if. His what if, and those are so powerful. What if your key employee isn't here tomorrow? If you're a restaurant and the chef is no longer here or able to work for you, if that really important person that runs your business is not here anymore, so that's key person. That's powerful. So that's a great way to get in front of those business owners specifically. So good call there. Protecting their business, absolutely. You want to help them think of, things that they have never thought of before, right? Make them aware of what's available, make them aware of what questions to ask themselves, right? They may never have considered what happens to my business if I'm no longer here to run it, right? Maybe their spouse is not involved at all and they wouldn't want to handle the business. A buy-sell agreement might be really powerful. They've got a business partner or a key employee that would want to, buy out the business, maybe from their spouse. So there's a lot of things to help them start thinking of to get in front of that. Ari, thank you so much for raising your hand. Jump on in here. What do you have to say?
One thing that I've done with like commercial clients that have really opened the door for me is tax write-offs.
Tax write-offs. Okay, I love that. Yeah. What do you, so when do you approach them on that? Where are you at when you have that conversation for the out-of-book clients?
For my out-of-book clients is, well, when they come to me like, oh, well, I just renewed, right? So we'll talk about it next year, sure, but let me give you something to think about. Let me make sure that your agent currently, has made you aware that if you have like an SCP plan or just a IRA, anything, you could use it as a tax write-off. And usually in my community, they have no knowledge of it. They're like, wait, what? Like I was not aware of this.
I love that. Thank you. What's cool about that is that that's just educating, right? I actually won a lot of business just by being that resource in my community or with whether it was a BNI group or a chamber. If ever I took the time to just educate people on the important thing, they often wanted to move their business over to you or at least take a look at it to see if it made sense because you took the time, which I promise you in our industry, the transactional, quick, fast, easy, I'll save you 15%, they're not taking the time to have that education and that relationship. So way to go. Round of applause for all of you for this activity. I'm going to hand things back over to Ms. Nicole.
Thank you so much. All right. Now that you all have gotten some hands-on practice with prospecting strategies, we're going to focus now on how to transition to the life conversation and your life insurance number activity. Now, in your web-based training, raise your hand for me if you remember the activity that revolves around your life insurance number, the one that had the Joe Google videos. Please raise your hand. All right, so a couple of you. So I want to hear from you. Make sure that when you do the web-based training, you actually go in and mark it complete once you've actually completed your life insurance number. But I want to hear, what did you think of your life insurance number? Positively.
Well, I went to go through it, but I'm having issues with Navigator and I'm dealing with IT. So a lot of my homework that I needed to do, I have options that are left out. So they're still working on it, but I just wanted to, so anybody else who went through it, they can collaborate more. I just know system.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Stacey, what did you think of your life insurance number activity?
I thought it was really good. It's pretty easy to go through. When you look at it, I did it on myself and I was like, well, it was very, very simple. I was pleasantly surprised. Stephen, yeah, I've had some issues with some things being not authorized too. So,
No, you're absolutely right. It definitely does make things simple. And I see Jimmy put in here that he really liked the dime approach. It's a very easy snapshot of helping them take ownership of how much life insurance they actually need. That very short breakdown. And Christy says, yeah, I'd open up those probing questions. So that life insurance, your life insurance number activity is where those prospects identify the amount of money that they would need if their spouse or somebody that they do rely on were to die. It's also going to allow you to dig into the type and kind of insurance that's going to align with the client's needs. But before you can use this activity with your clients, you do have to get there first. So you have to have the conversation in advance. So let's take a quick look on how we can pivot into asking the life insurance conversation. So do we have any volunteers to share on how they pivot into entering into that life insurance conversation? Raise your hand for me. And I know Kim had touched on it with the prospecting. So how would you, when you are meeting with these prospects, how would you pivot into that conversation to get into your life insurance number?
Perhaps some of those probing questions that they are bringing up, right? Questions are so powerful.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think possibly you could, if you're doing, reviewing the homeowners and the auto policies, maybe say something like that when it comes to income replacement, have you ever thought about how that can impact your family? And then maybe pivot that way into the life conversation. So make it kind of natural and not salesy.
Excellent, awesome. And I did see Christy indicated too, going over their coverage and their mortgage. So hey, it looks like you're buying a $400,000 home. Let's talk a little bit more about that mortgage protection and that life insurance that could pay off your mortgage for your spouse in the event that something happens to you. Megan, talking about the amount of assets that you own. Yes, that's definitely a good one too. Anybody else? Any other ideas on how you would pivot into that life insurance conversation? And I know that what if question is a really big one. What would happen if? Asking if they know how much life insurance they need. So what if you came across somebody, you're like, oh, you know what? I have 8 life insurance policies. I really don't need any more. How would you handle that one? Sorry.
I would say, well, I would touch base, like, what are you sure it's about? Have you ever had an assessment to make sure that those 8 life insurances are correct?
Awesome. Because even though you have 8 policies, you don't know how much the total death benefit is. Is it enough to actually meet the need for your family to make sure that they can maintain their current standard of living? Everyone give her a round of applause. Like, give yourselves a round of applause. You all did amazing. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so now what's going to happen is knowledgeable Kim is going to do a role play activity with you all on the Your Life Insurance number. Kim, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. So yeah, this is the worksheet on the screen here of your life insurance number and the dime approach. Man, whenever I talk, something happens, like a frog jumps in my throat. I apologize. So, we're just going to kind of do a role play here to ask you some of the questions you'll be asking your clients. So I need a volunteer that could play the client for me, and I would be the rep. I was thinking of Steven, if he's game to do this with me.
I was reading your mind. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Okay, so imagine with me that we're sitting down together. Perhaps, we looked at your home and your auto, and now I have gotten your permission to walk through and get your unique life insurance number. So at this point, I'm going to ask you a few questions, Stephen, just to get a better feel of what that number is going to be. So first off, we understand what is your debt right now. So when you think of debt, I'm talking about auto loans, credit card debt you might have, anything outside of the mortgage. Do you have any debt today?
That's very trusting that you asked me that, Kim. I wasn't really thinking about that, but yes, I do carry some weight with me. Unfortunately, I have
was 68,000, 70,000. Should we go for 70,000 just to have an even number there for you? Okay. But we'll go with 70 on the debt. That's fine. Totally typical actually right now. Or in some cases, that's pretty good. So no worries there. How about your income? So for my clients, when I ask this question, we're thinking about, of course, how much do you make per year? But more importantly, how much of that income per year would you want to replace if something should happen? So, you know, you could be thinking of how much you would want to go to your family should something happen to you. How much income do you want to be replacing with the life insurance?
Well, that $8,000 debt, Kim, does that include my mortgage or just regular expenses?
So, first we answered the debt. Now we're in the income, so it's completely separate. I'm gonna go through four different categories with you. So
Sounds
now we're
good.
thinking,
I didn't know my, oh, sorry, Kim, I didn't know my whole debt, and, you know, just playing the role,
you're good.
I make about $125,000 a year, which roughly about 96 that I'm, bringing home 105. And then I owe on the house, 200,000, so what do you?
200?
Yeah, on the house, so what do you think I need to do to replace that? I want my, family to take care of on that end.
Yeah, like you're jumping ahead of me just a little bit. What we're getting to is the life insurance number, but right now I just need to know how much per year do you make? So you make 125 per year. I heard of that, right? 125? Okay. So if we wanted to replace the whole 125, do we have any children? You or even your
Yes.
hypothetical client, you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll play this role with you in case I get a question, but let me go ahead and, let you know that I have 3 kids.
3 kids. Okay. What are their ages?
8, 15, and 22.
Perfect. Okay, so your 8-year-old still has about 10 years till they're 18 and potentially out of the house, right? So, okay, perfect. So some of my clients want to replace their income until the children are out of the house. Now, that's not everyone, and can't all, afford to do that, that'd be great in a given world if you could replace $125,000 10 times over within your number. But I do want to ask you, would you want to replace that income for a few years or the 10 years or just for the single year?
What's a few years to you? 3, 5?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years of time.
5 years if possible.
Okay. What that really does for you, Stephen, is it allows your spouse or your family that survives you to have some time to grieve and not have to, have that financial burden of worrying about replacing your income immediately. So that would be 125,000 times 5. Is that fair for your income replacement?
Yeah, sure does. Then they can grieve and, go on vacation too. That's what I'm.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so your mortgage I heard was 200,000, so I put that down there. So you'd want to pay off the entire mortgage should something happen to you within your life insurance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the education, so one of your children's already 22 years old, so you might not want to leave any education costs for them. I'm not sure. But you can allocate some money in a fund that you want to go towards your children's education or to anything else. So is there anything else you want to be a part of your life insurance number?
Yeah, some education. Yeah, actually going to work on our master's program. And I'd like to, pay for that if I can.
Oh, fantastic. So how much do you think you'd want to leave behind for each child's education?
Yeah, so more of that look like, 10 years from now. So that's, really hard to do. So let's say 50,000, for 2 kids and then about 30 for the other. So 130.
Okay, perfect, 130 there. Fantastic. And then do you have any readily available funds? So do you have a large inheritance savings account that you haven't touched yet? Or how about an existing life insurance policy that could help offset these numbers?
Well, Kim, if I had extra money in the account, I probably would.
It's almost a trick question at the end of this report. Cause not
Yeah,
too many
don't
people are gonna have that. Yeah, but you,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, we can stop the role play now, Steven, thank you, everyone give an applause for Steven for role playing with me today. So, when you have a client and you're going through that part of it, imagine maybe they didn't have any debt. You know, within there, they could have just had maybe the mortgage, if anything. So they might just want to, or they might have some funds available to them that they can also offset their life insurance need. So just, you do ask that question just to get that idea, right? So, if they already have another life insurance policy, you know, for $300,000, that could help offset the additional life insurance number that they might need. Okay, so you're really just trying to help get to the bottom of what is it they want to happen for their life insurance number, and how can we help them get there? Okay, so thank you for role playing that with me. I see a question coming through. Hey, Vincent.
I'm just, role play I like, and going over the document, because they have it on here to find that number. But with one way of approaching the customer, kind of help pull some of those out and relax them before people go into that. Try to get them to start thinking about the numbers, asking them up front, hey, how much life insurance do you think you need to go ahead and cover your household? You know, everybody's gonna have a number. Trust me. Any man that's working, that's taking care of his home has a number in his head already, whether he wants to believe it or not, you know, whether people want to believe it or not, he knows all those numbers on there. That's the reason why I have was at Mark Tax. On there, I'm stressing on stuff like that. But in the reality of it, hey, what's the number that you have? If he had came like, well, you know, he's picking just a house and maybe take care of some debt, so I need 250,000. In all reality, for what you put down, he probably needs about 600,000-700,000 on there. But him putting that number and actually showing this is really what you need, kind of goes ahead and push that fact that this is how we, you know, how you show the customer, hey, one, I actually care. Two, I'm actually sitting down and you over your life, not to make you stressed, but to kind of understand this is what we do. This is how we cover you. This is how you're taken care of your country. All that. This
Absolutely.
is like my feedback on it.
No, I appreciate that, Vincent. Thank you for sharing that. And also, when you do find out someone else has life insurance elsewhere, maybe when you're just out and about and you say, oh yeah, you know, if you want to talk about life insurance, and they're like, oh, I've already got that. No, I'm good. Or maybe you told them their auto and they say that same thing to you. Ask them this. How did you come up with that number? Because oftentimes someone just told them that's what they can apply for. If they didn't know, they could apply for what they actually need. Someone they've just heard like it's a nice round number, 500,000, 1 million, that's fine, you know, but they don't really always know why they have what we have. Because to Vincent's point, have an idea, but oftentimes their actual need, to what you said, is a lot larger than what they might be thinking of. And so it's always a powerful question just to ask why and how did you come up with that number? Because that's going to open your door to help them discover their unique life insurance number. That's going to open that door wide open because they're going to say, well, I don't really know. This is what I needed 5 years ago when I wrote the policy, or that's what they told me I needed. So I just went with it. Well, has that number changed, right? Let's go ahead and find out what your life insurance number really is to see if there is a gap between what we would say you really need and what you truly have in place. All right, so great job, you guys, walking through that with me. What did we think of this? Right, I like that feedback there. So that's section 1 of your life insurance number worksheet, but there are more sections here. I just want to highlight. So part 1 is obviously a huge value add, but well, you know, part 2 and part 3, I don't want you to ignore that. This is a really great resource for you to help your clients also figure out maybe what their ideal type of insurance would be. You know, now we're thinking in terms of, you know, the structure. Is it a term policy? Is it a term with a term of premium? Maybe a term split, or maybe they are just really in need of some permanent insurance. Maybe they want that cash value. What's important to them, right? So going through parts 2 and 3 is going to be really valuable to help educate them on what type of insurance they really are more prone to needing or wanting. And then when you get to part 3, you're gonna be able to really just show them the mix of that. So you're gonna be able to see, you know, term versus permanent, very different animals, right? We'll walk through that in the next hour, but just, you know, this is gonna be a great conversation point with you and your clients. All right. So whatever you do, make sure that you are not trying to overwhelm your clients. I know this is a lot to take on, but it's with their game to walk through this entire, you know, exercise with you. It's really powerful. All right. So I'm going to hand things back over to Nicole, and I'm going to take a water break. We can go through maybe some tips here.
Awesome, thank you. So now that we are all on the same page about each section of your life insurance number document, I do want to quickly go over some tips about how you can approach completing this with your clients and your prospects. Now, the version that Kim had just shown you, this one that's displayed here, is a PDF version that you can print off and walk through with your clients. But I want to show you where you can locate your desktop version. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and share my window. So on your desktop, you should see this icon here where it says your life insurance number. Kim, can you see this? Awesome. So I was keeping track of the role play with Stephen. And Stephen, all you have to do when you are having this conversation with the clients is say, hey, Stephen, based off of our conversation, you had indicated that you currently have debt of $70,000. Is that correct? Can't hear you.
Okay, we're doing this. Okay, hold on. All right, here we go. Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. And for final expenses, typically it runs around $15,000. We just include that for your final expenses to make sure your funeral costs are covered. That sounds about accurate, correct?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. And your income, you indicated that you make $125,000. Is that also correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. And you said you want to replace your full income of $125,000 for a period of 5 years, correct?
Yeah, can I ask you something, Nicole? I do have
Yes.
a question. You know, I don't know where everything, but I do bring home about 96. Do I need to do 125? Because that's going to be tax free, isn't that correct? An insurance policy. So I mean, I might save myself a little bit of money with the extra $200,000 or extra $100,000.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I was just repeating the numbers that you had given to Kim earlier. So if that's a different kind of question. The amount of income that you want to replace is the amount that you would provide when you're having a conversation with the rep. And that's a conversation that you would have with the clients too. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So when you're sitting down with them, you're like, hey, I need to know how much of your income you want to replace. So when you're asking how much do you make a year, if they say 125, I really want that full 125 replaced. That's the amount that you would put in this section. Okay. For tax purposes or not, because the death benefit is tax free. Sound good?
We're going to the annual income to replace. Yes, it's 125,000.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're replacing $125,000 per year for 5 years to replace. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. And you had indicated that your mortgage was $200,000 remaining, for which you would like the entire amount to be covered in the event of your death. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's ma'am.
Okay. And for education costs, you had indicated for your 3 children that you would like to set aside $130,000 in the event of your death.
I sure would.
Awesome. And you had also indicated that you don't currently have any existing assets or life insurance to offset this amount in total. Is that also correct?
My side-by-side count?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay, just want to make sure.
All right. Now I put a random number in here. I just put 39, but I did put your name. So after this information is in here, it will then calculate that total for me. And this information tells me that you need $1,040,000 in life insurance to make sure that your family is taken care of in the event of your death. And you can print these off for your clients. Now, I'm going to give you these questions to take home with you. So print this off for your clients. And this is completely separate from a role play. Print these off for your clients to go home and answer these individual questions. This is going to give them a breakdown of the type of life insurance that's going to best fit their needs. So it's going to help determine whether they need term insurance permanent insurance, or maybe a combination of the two. So if their mortgage is paid off and they only need final expenses to be covered because they don't have any more children, those are the kinds of things that they need to figure out on their own and separately. Go ahead, Stacy. I see your question popping up.
So those questions right there, you're not going through with the client, right then and there.
You can do it right then and there, but typically they want to go home and discuss it. So that's why I would send it home with them so that they can answer these questions to figure out the needs. Because after I send them home with this homework, I'm going to set another appointment. Because I'm saying, okay, we've determined you need $1,040,000 in life insurance. Stephen, you just indicated yes to all of these prompts. With your permission, may I go ahead and submit this for pre-approval with our underwriting so that when it comes back approved, we can discuss and solidify those numbers. Does that sound good? And he's going to say yes, because every single time I went through those numbers, he said yes every step of the way. I'm not going to get a no when it comes to the end of it. Does that make sense, Stacey?
Yeah, so can you, then, save this actual information? Will it let you save this so you have their information, then when they come back, you know?
I'm sure that you can save it. So when you print this off, you can save it as a PDF version, or you can scan it and save it and put it in their client folder. But you're going to print this off for them. You can also email it and save it in their hard copy or an electronic copy, depending on how you store those client information, so that you can circle back once the conversation comes around. So when it comes back approved from underwriting, now you know if they have any table rating. You know the exact amount that their premium is going to be because underwriting has already approved it. So you can build it out based off of their needs. So if they need just term, we'll write a just term policy based off of the pre-approved amount. If they need a permanent and term combined, you can split it up accordingly based off of how much that client is comfortable spending. Because now you have solid numbers based off of their table ratings, should any come back. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, that is everything for this first half of today. Kim, I think now would be a good time for us to go on a break before we load up our second point, right?
Absolutely. So for this break, you guys, we're gonna stay on this, and then we'll spend any objections that you might receive and have some fun with that. And after that, we'll get into the underwriting process itself and how to help a client through that stage. And we'll also complete an activity on handling some of those common objections there. So then we're going to hear from the folks in the underwriting department that have some great tips for you on how to guide our clients through the underwriting process. Okay, and then we'll end answering any questions you might have. All right. Give me a thumbs up if we're all good to go. I know that sometimes technology can be a miss. Okay. Cool. Let's start with the education piece. Our speaker earlier, OJ, talked about the importance of educating clients and prospects on their options for insurance. So I'm going to demonstrate the way that the web-based course does. It's not the only approach that of course you can use, but it is one of the easier ways that you can use to help educate your clients on the types of life insurance and how to understand this concept. Okay, so with pen and paper, back to the basics, right? I highly encourage you to also draw this out with me, or when you have your client with you, draw this out with them. The paper is a really good takeaway, and the drawing allows you to keep the client's attention without them getting too far ahead of you in what you're trying to show them. All right, so the first thing you're going to draw on your paper is term life insurance. So we're going to start with term. It's the simplest and most affordable way of obtaining life insurance. So you'll draw this out here, and you're going to say, okay, here we are today, and let's just say that you want to apply for $100,000 of insurance. And if we did a 20-year term, let's just say that 20-year term policy for $100,000 is $18 a month. So this is where you're going to start off drawing for them. Okay, you can also educate them here that you can also customize life insurance for term to be 10, 15, 20, or 30 years here at Country. So we're going to go with 20 years right now. It's the most common type of life insurance for term, but a lot of clients will choose either 10 or 30 years depending on what their goal is there. Okay, so next you're going to explain. All right, so Mr. Client, if you should die tomorrow, you would have $100,000 that would then be paid out to your beneficiary. Same thing if you should die in 10 years. Same thing if you should die in 19 years and 363 days. Okay, but given the idea that this does not change, $100,000 over the course of this entire term. Okay. What happens though if you die prior? Right? Now you're at 20 years and a day, 20 years and a week. Anything after that 20-year mark. Now your term has expired, theory, and therefore you would have nothing for that 20 years that you paid into this term policy. Think of it like renting, right? You rented your policy for that 20 years, and after you moved out, so did everything else. Okay. And of course, at that point in time, if you should pass away at this time, or once this expires at this time, you can always apply for another term policy. But in 20 years, that same $100,000, that was $18 a month level for the entire 20 years, could now be $57 a month. It could be $97 a month. Perhaps you're uninsurable at that point in time. We can't guarantee what the future holds, right? So we're all one diagnosis away from being uninsurable. That's the sad truth. All right, so that's term life insurance for you. Now, Mr. Client, let's talk about another type of insurance called permanent. This is where it gets kind of fun. I like to have fun. Bring it back to that. So here we go. Let's draw this out again. You're saying $100,000. Here we are today. As you can see, the line's going to go a lot longer. Okay, because there's no end date, right? The first one I said, think of term insurance as renting. Think of permanent insurance as buying. Okay. So long as you pay your premiums, you own this policy. You can also design it to be paid up at some point. Maybe it's going to be a 20 year pay up policy, so where you paid in for 20 years and then you own it for the rest of your life. Perhaps it's paid up at 65, or an executive whole life that you pay on until you're 95. But either way, this does not end, and you own this insurance. So here we go. Now let's say this is $80 because it's not going to be as affordable as term life. It's got too many other cool things going on with it, right? So you pay for what else you get for it. Okay. With this, not only do you have the death benefit, but now you've got this blue line that we didn't have before, cash value. This is where it gets so fun, right? So over time, the cash value will continue to rise. And this is accomplished through dividends or interest credits, but they are not guaranteed. All right. If paid, they can be used to reduce premium. They can be paid into cash to you. They can be left on deposit with the company, or you can use it to also increase your death benefit, as shown here. So this is one way to introduce the two types of insurance to your client without getting too deep into the weeds. It's going to help communicate the major differences and allow for, a detailed education based on the client's reaction, what they're saying to you here, and what the kind of questions they start to ask you. So you can find a more detailed explanation of this on the Life Sales Approach Guide, which is going to be in the resources that we drop at the end of this session today. And while you're there, I highly recommend that you check out the Getting Started Whole Life Guide, which is also going to give you a lot of ways to approach selling whole life insurance. Okay, but this is a great way to help them visualize the difference. Nicole, anything that you'd add here?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit further. So where it says at the end of 20 years that there's no more death benefit, here at Country Financial, when a client reaches the end of their locked-in term, the policy does enter into something called ART, which we call annual renewable term. So if they're 20 years old and they've been locked into $18 a month for a period of 20 years, now they're 40, that premium is going to increase every single year that policy goes into annual renewable term until they purchase another term policy or convert to whole life. That's all I wanted to illustrate and point out. So they're not gonna be completely without life insurance. They can continue to allow that prior term policy to enter into ART, for which it would continue to pay out that death benefit, but it just does increase every single year that they get a year older. Just wanted to elaborate that.
Absolutely. Good point there, Nicole. Ari, do you have a question?
So then if we do the ART, they wouldn't have to prove insurability at that point.
Exactly. So it'll basically think of it as an automatic renewal, so long as they continue to pay the new premium. But that premium will go up every year at that point. Jamie.
Just to clarify, I'm with Life Case Management. Once you've hit the 20-year, it would be a replacement, not a conversion. So
Yeah.
you would go into underwriting.
With the ART?
Yeah, because it would be a replacement. Once you've hit your base 20-year term, the end of it, you would then be replacing the policy, and replacements are subject to underwriting. Where conversion, so doing it before the end of your term, no
Sure.
underwriting.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions on this? Okay. So from here, a couple of notes I want to add on to this diagram. Really important that you just draw it in chunks, right? Just keep it simple. Like I did today, just, trying to show it one piece at a time. If you draw this all out, they're going to be looking ahead. So just draw it in chunks. Also, keeping those low amounts in the hypotheticals, right? So if you've already gone through their life insurance number, don't use that number, right? It would be a lot more complicated when you get to specifics and real numbers. So keep it low, keep it simple as you draw it out there. Avoid any non-approved diagrams. Okay, so you don't want to be entering, into a legal matter by using a non-approved diagram that is not allowed. So go ahead and just, this one is approved, so you can draw this one out, no problem. Don't ever though apply, amounts for dividends or index credits or cash value, because those are not guaranteed. So we wouldn't want to put that there. All right. And just as anything, we would never want to write on any illustrations, no highlighting, no comments, anything like that. That goes into kind of the financial space. And so that is a big no-no. So make sure you're never writing on any of your illustrations that you put out for your clients as well. Okay. So for the diagram, just a couple more notes. It does not educate on what permanent products we do have to offer here at Country. So for that, I want to encourage you to check out that word track in the Getting Started guide. That's going to be at your resource at the end. And this again was produced in partnership with that video that Nicole referenced earlier with Joe Newbold, the Your Life Insurance Number guy. So it does a really good job explaining the differences while not getting too deep into the weeds. Another great option for the product education is parts 2 and 3 of the Your Life Insurance Number. This is a great takeaway for clients that really does get into the explaining the differences of our products with the clients so they can understand what's available to them. Okay. I'm curious though, I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of the perm term life diagram that I illustrated today? What do you like about this approach? What do you not like? Will you use it? Vincent?
Yeah, I like the simplicity in it. And that's usually what people want. They don't need too many numbers, too many different things to look over. Just keep it, what they say, kids method, keep it simple. Also, straight to the point with it.
Yeah, I like that. Keep it simple. Stacy, what about you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say too, the simplicity of it. Very, very easy to understand.
Yeah. I'm seeing some great comments as well in the chat. They're going to use it. Simple visual, duplicatable, helps them visualize, take the picture. Absolutely. And you know what else it does? It keeps prices out of it. right? You're not talking premium here. You're just really giving the examples so they can understand the concept. Because honestly, there is no premium or rate until we actually have the result back from underwriting. And there's nothing to decide. The only thing that we can do is get them pre-approved. Okay, so on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and hand things back over to my good friend Nicole Good, and I'll let you talk about objections.
So now that you all have a little bit more experience on educating your clients on their life insurance options, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the common objections that you can expect to get when you are talking to them about life insurance. Now, there are many places in the life conversation that you may receive those objections, and the course that you took also describes some pretty common objections that clients have towards life insurance. So I want to hear from you. Go ahead and type in the chat at least one objection that you've already received, or one that you potentially expect to get when you're having that life insurance conversation. Already have it through work. Yeah, definitely one. Not right now. Can't afford it right now. Not interested. My time is limited. I'm young and I don't need it. Yes. All of these are objections that you will be expected to encounter when you are having that conversation with your clients. But it's important to determine what's important to the client, why it's important, and how your solutions for country can help the client accomplish what's important to him or to her. So let's go ahead and start. I want to hear from you. Someone raise your hand for me. If they say, we can't afford it right now, how would you overcome that objection? What would you tell them? All right.
We have a plan that fits everybody's position.
Okay, awesome. All right, what about you?
I would offer to just at least take a look at it, because it might seem unaffordable based on other quotes that they've received, but at least to allow me the opportunity to put something together.
Yeah, walk them through the life insurance number to see how much they need. We don't know how much they're going to pay until it comes back from underwriting as approved. So great. Megan, how about you?
For the previous course that I took, right now you can have the endorsement to make it refundable. So you can kind of explain that the cash values that they put into it, they can see a return from that possible.
You're talking about the return of premium rider on those term policies, hedging their
Yes.
bets if they outlive the policy. So I wouldn't use the word refundable. So they're still going to pay the same amount of premiums for that term policy, but they're paying an additional premium that's going to be invested that they can use to purchase paid up life insurance towards the end of that term policy, or they can get that refunded amount. But that's the money the money that's being refunded is the extra premium that's involved. They're still paying the same rate on that term policy. So great, excellent. All right, next one. I'd be interested only if I didn't have to get the health screening. How would you overcome this objection?
Not everybody has to take a health screening, correct?
It depends on the type of policy. So there's different
Accelerated?
accelerated, simplified, and fully underwritten. Yeah. Please excuse me. Anybody else? How would you respond? I'd only be interested if I didn't have to go through that health screen. All right.
I actually have like touching back to that. So not everybody has to go through like a review on their health, that they can choose not to with a different type of policy.
Okay, so you're right, depending on how much life insurance they get, they don't have to be fully underwritten. But sometimes, even if it is a lower amount, if it's simplified or accelerated, things will pop up that may require the policy to be fully underwritten. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Stephen, go ahead.
Exactly why we need to sit down, because it'd be more important in case you're scared to take the health exam. What else could be out there?
What else could be out there? Absolutely. All right, next one we have. I don't don't want my family to get rich if I die. How would you overcome that one?
It's your gift for the living.
Oh, shoot, I'm on you.
You'd be surprised. Some people actually say this. All right, go ahead.
Sorry, I would say, well, you can choose whoever you want to be the beneficiary, not just your family.
Yeah, but you can also refer back to your life insurance number. Say, hey, Mr. Client, we just went through the dime worksheet with you to determine your life insurance number. We determined that you needed $1 million in coverage, not because they're gonna get rich, but this money is already allocated to pay your mortgage, your funeral costs, your children's living, your children's college expenses. These things are already allocated. They're not getting rich. They're just maintaining their current standard of living in the event that something happens to you. So great job on that. All right, so if you want to take the time and think about it, how would you overcome this one? Someone raise your hand for me. Steven?
Well, unmute myself. I would definitely say that's exactly what our last client said. And unfortunately, we had a situation that took place that they weren't covered. And I just like to hold that with you. No, along the line, on the 10th.
Awesome, great, thank you. All right, my spouse has a good job. He or she would be fine if something were to happen to me. Someone raise your hand for me, and how would you overcome this one? Bill?
I would just remind the person that they're not gonna have their income anymore, so, you gotta think about 5 and 10 years in the future, not just the first year you die.
Excellent, awesome, thank you. Stacy?
Yeah, I would just remind them, you know, too, if they have kids, and then if there's like education costs involved, those types of things, not just about, or maybe if they, you know, it would help them, you know, if they have a mortgage still, you know, there's a lot of things that could still help them.
Right, we don't want to put all of that pressure on ourselves. Yes, they have a good job, but we want to make sure that they're maintaining their current standard of living. You're currently living on 2 incomes right now. It makes things a lot more difficult. All right. I already have life insurance coverage through work. And someone posted this one in the chat. How would you respond to this objection? Steven?
That's great. And then along the lines, sometimes coverage is, you're not following along. No, but you can probe those questions to get that.
Yeah, Steven. And Bill said the same thing in the chat box. It's probably not portable. So Bill, can you come off of mute and tell me, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, when you leave the company, that insurance doesn't necessarily travel with you, so you have to replace that insurance. But the chances of it, they'll probably ask you for the chances, but most of the time, you leave the company, you don't get carried with you.
Yeah, that's so true. So if they have life insurance through work, what happens if you leave that job? Can you take it with you? Another thing about life insurance through work is they are put into age brackets. So they might pay $1.25, $2 a month that's taken directly out of their paycheck to contribute towards this life insurance that they have through work. But as they continue to get older, when their age bracket changes, that cost of the policy is going to increase too. So it may be to their benefit and more cost effective for them to purchase their own policy. They own it, they control it, and it goes with them no matter where they go, and the premium is locked in, especially if it's a term policy. All right, good job on that one. All right, next up, my brother says I should only buy term insurance and invest the difference in the market. How would you respond to this one?
This is a good one.
All right, this is the last one, but I would definitely go along the lines, that's great, I'm sure. the broker was able to go through and ask your brother the right questions so they can set them up. And I think that would be another great reason that we can get together, make sure you're properly taken care of on your individual needs.
Yeah, good, excellent. Bill, what about you?
Well, I would mention to them, especially around property life insurance, that's guaranteed while the market's not guaranteed.
Yeah, another thing you could also question them too, you're like, hey, I have a lot of clients that follow that financial advisor's advice, buy term and invest the rest. But how many, you'd find a surprising number of people don't actually invest that difference. So let's go ahead and take a look at your life insurance number and find the best fit for you. So that's another option you could choose too. All right, we just bought a house. We have most of our money tied up there. How would you overcome this one? All right, I'm gonna call somebody. Christy's typing. Christy, come off mute and tell us, how would you respond to this objection?
I would probably go down the path of, mortgage protection. You have money tied up there, but if something does happen, how are you gonna cover that?
Absolutely. Talk to them about the mortgage protection. That is your biggest financial asset. Let's go ahead and get that protected in the event that something happens to you. All right, my kids are almost through college. I don't have a need for life insurance any longer. How would you respond to this one?
Starting their kids.
Megan, let's hear from you.
I would ask them if they're good with their kids footing the bill to manage that, right? Sometimes it's a fine line to delegate in between siblings as well, like, just final words, right? So that's, just not leaving them with burden.
Yeah, definitely talk to them about their final expenses, putting that financial burden on their children. I would also ask them about what kind of legacy that they want to leave behind. So maybe they're going to have grandchildren. Do they want to leave something behind for their grandchildren as a benefit, that legacy? Now, last one. We are young and healthy, and we don't need life insurance. How would you respond to this one? Kim had kind of elaborated on this one earlier when she was doing the diagram. Go ahead, Bill.
I would let them know that accidents happen to anybody, whether you're young or old. And so you need to prepare for those type of things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christy is saying, hey, it's the cheapest. The most affordable time to get it is right now. You're never going to be in better health than you are currently. You're young, you're healthy. Now's the time to buy it. Let's get that premium locked in for your healthy and young age. Because as we get older, things pop up. We could become uninsurable in the future. Now is the time to get it. Right now. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins back over to Kim so that we can get into the underwriting process. Kim, you're muted.
Well, that doesn't help you at all, hear me. Okay. All right, so now that you've gotten some experience educating clients and overcoming objections, let's look at how we can further guide our clients through the underwriting process. So the transition from taking that application, we're going to want to reference 3 major steps helping the client through the underwriting process. So the first part here is binding the application. So who can tell me first what is involved in the binding of the application? Whoever can tell me first is the winner.
Winner, chicken dinner, making sure they're covered in between it goes to underwriting.
All right, I like it. Thank you. Ari, and then hand raised too.
It's kind of like a temporary insurance for 30 days so we can get them approved through underwriting.
All right, thank you. And I'm seeing some comments coming in the chat here. Taking the payment, first month's premium. So that's the answer I was looking for. I like all your answers though. So the binding authority that you have as the rep is to take that payment for the application. Now, a caveat here that, you know, might come into play here later in maybe tomorrow's session in a fun life insurance game. When you bind the application, you can do so on 2 of the 3 types of policies. So if it's fully underwritten, you could bind the application. If it is accelerated underwriting, you can bind that application. If it is simplified, you cannot bind that application. So just a little note for you to tuck away in the back of your memory bank, because that will come back into play for our life insurance game tomorrow. But the simplified gets approved really fast, and so we cannot take a payment on that until it comes back as approved. Okay. Now, the next thing is setting expectations for underwriting. So what might that look like? How can we help our clients have good expectations for the process? What would we say to them up front? That was a given. So I think I'm a huge proponent of managing expectations. So one of the things I want you guys to be thinking about when you take that application or you bind that application and it's going to go to underwriting is just set it up for yourself to underpromise and overdeliver. Okay, don't allow them to think for 1 second that it's a certain thing that's going to go through accelerated, but it's for sure. Don't let them think that there will be no more steps or questions to answer. Unfortunately, we can't control that, right? There might be more questions. There might be more steps. There could be an exam. That's kind of out of our hands. All we can do is really set them up to understand, you know, you might be hearing from me. I might have additional questions from the underwriter. And I'll keep you posted. You can promise them that you're going to be in touch with them on this and be all over it. But just make sure you set up that expectation, both on, you know, if there's going to be any more questions to answer and how long it's going to take. You don't want to say, oh, we'll have this back to you in 3 to 5 days. And now you're 2 weeks in and they're going, where's my policy? I thought you said I had it back in 5 days. So just make sure you're setting yourself up for success here. All right, so status updates and handling writebacks. I could talk about that, but I think what would be really helpful is to actually move this back over to Nicole and our guests today to go through the underwriting interview that we have set up for you. So Nicole, back to you.
Okay. So now that we have been talking a lot about the underwriting process, we are going to hear from Jamie Hoyt from underwriting, and she will provide us firsthand experience and helpful tips that she has for us. So Jamie, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the underwriting department?
Hey, Nicole, sorry to interrupt. Andrea is here. Jamie's actually observing, but I'm actually doing the interview with you here today.
My mistake, Andreas. We have Andreas here with us today. So Andreas, could you please tell us a little bit about your role with underwriting?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jamie's here as well. We are a couple of case managers in the life underwriting division. I work mostly with the Western region. Jamie is with the Central region right now. Our case management team is split into those 3 regions. So we have Central, Southern, and Western. Each region aligns based off of market areas. So Western is market areas 1 and 2. Then Central is market areas 3 and 4, and Southern is market areas 5 and 6. And each region just has a specialized group of individuals that concentrate on each region, and we are basically your single point of contact for life underwriting needs. And so when you think about case management, we are your lifeline to life underwriting. We are going to be able to provide resources for you from quoting and helping to fill out that application all the way up to the final steps, getting that policy active and enforced.
internally, we work closely with our production teams and underwriters. So our production team is the team that handles a lot of that back end processing, a lot of the technical work that goes into our systems. And our underwriters, of course, are the ones that are doing the rate evaluations based on our clientele. And we work together with them very well to ensure greater collaboration and to drive that productivity. And our main goal is just making life underwriting less invasive, faster, and easier for you and your clients. We have a couple of different ways that you can reach out to us. We have email or by phone. Generally, email is preferred, but if you're on a time crunch or have a more complicated question, absolutely give us a call. We have no hold times on our line. So if you are busy and it goes to voicemail, just leave us a detailed message with the policy number and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We do respond to our voicemails within 1 business hour, and our emails have a service level of about 4 business hours, but we hold ourselves to a very high standard and we are usually responding a lot quicker than those service levels allow.
All right, I think I'm gotten a little bit.
You doing okay here?
Yeah. So if you could please tell us a little bit about your role on the as a life case manager.
Yeah. So are we able to move forward to the next slide actually?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I told you a little bit about what it means to be a life case manager for us. So the first thing that we're going to look at is preparing the client using the application. So the first thing that needs to be considered in general is that life application. So it's separated into 3 different parts. We have part A, part B, and part C. Part A is that basic applicant information. It also has information for the insured, the payer, and the owner. And then we also have part B, which is medical questions and medical history. And then part C is final signatures and HIPAA. But part B is just going back to that part B, just really quick to touch on medical questions, medical history. It's not your responsibility, of course, to ask your clients any detailed medical information for the application. Typically, that part B is conducted as a medical interview by the third-party vendor, Exam1. And of course, you're not asking those questions for the application, but I do want to add a caveat just to say it's still important to have a general knowledge of your client's health, just to give you an idea of what to expect when you're doing that application. So, for example, if you learn that your client chews tobacco occasionally, that'll give you some insight into them getting a tobacco rating for that use. So just having that knowledge of your client's health will just overall give you a good idea when you're working with prospects and working on life applications. And then for the medical interview, we do have the new online capabilities for that medical interview now as well. So it's been really great, a great enhancement for the life underwriting process, and it's been making those cases move through the system that much faster. So how it works with the medical interview is once you submit that application, of course it goes through those background checks, and once those are completed, the order for the medical interview will be sent to Exam1, and Exam1 will then begin sending out recurring links every 2 days to remind the client to complete that online interview. After the 4th day, they'll start to also include calls, just to give the client every opportunity to complete that medical interview as soon as possible, and just so that they stay on top of getting those requirements done. And so that's the important part. An important part of setting expectations is having the client be aware that this is the next step. So they'll start getting those emails. They'll start getting the phone calls to do that medical interview. Just making sure that they're aware that their involvement is crucial in the process from the beginning, gonna be great for setting those expectations. And we'll also be providing some links at the end, of course, with a link to the medical interview, expectation setting guide, and best practices so that you can look more into that.
And I did post that medical interview expectation setting guide in the chat. Now, and Andreas, let's say I submitted an application, what would be the best way for me to follow it through that underwriting process?
The best way to follow it is through using that Navigator pending business, which is showing on the screen right now. We do also have a LifeSuite policy tracker that's out there as well, but the pending business screen here in Navigator is going to be a mainstay for the field. So as you can see, there's a few different screenshots of the different screens that you'll see when you're in your pending business. The first thing that you'll do when you're looking at your listing of your cases is you will click on the name and it'll open up the overview and you'll see each of these different tabs. So starting with the overview tab on the far left, it has that basic information. So the type of application that it is, status, the current status of that application, and the mode of premium, as well as some of that other basic info. Next to that, we have the applicant tab, which will show the type of plan that the application is, the face amount of that plan, the rating. So once underwriting has completed their evaluation and they have approved that rating, that will show up on the applicants tab, as well as any riders as well for the plan. And then we have the requirements and messages tab. So these two tabs are going to be really, really important for tracking the case and setting those expectations, because this is where a lot of that communication and a lot of that insight is going to come from. It's going to come to you for the case. So checking out requirements, this section will show what is needed from underwriting, such as if they needed a specific questionnaire, or if a medical facility has a health authorization for medical records that needs to be completed. Things like that will show up under requirements. And they will also show up in red, as you can see with that red banner. It'll show up in red to catch your eye, to make sure that you're alerted that there's something that needs your attention. Of course, once a policy has been approved by underwriting and it has been issued by our production team, those final requirements are then added to the case. So you'll see things like premium. You'll see if there's an amendment that's needed, that amendment will show up in red. You'll also see statement of health and delivery receipt, which is that final form that'll be needed for finishing up any of those cases. And then you have the messages tab, which is a way of communicating, of our production team or our underwriters communicating out to the field. And you can also use the messages function to follow back up with them and reach back out. There's a reply action that you can reply directly to writebacks. You can reply directly to any pressing questions that underwriting needs more information on. And it just works really well. So overall, when you're looking at your Navigator pending business, it's going to be very important to regularly check your pending business, just to make sure that you're staying up to date with the goings on in each of your cases. As you can see, there are some badges that show up, like there's a badge under messages. Those notification badges just tell you that there's something that needs to be looked at, that's new, that needs to be looked at or addressed. And so just making sure that you're using these functionalities to the best of your ability will help you from start to finish. If you can't get in touch with us right away, this will be a great resource to get started on what you're needing for the case.
So Andres, what would be some of the top pitfalls that life underwriting experiences, and how can we as reps avoid them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we of course have some amazing tips and tricks to help the field become successful, especially because there are some frustrating situations that can arise when working with life underwriting. We have a few on the screen here, and the first thing that's there and that's been hammered in this whole entire section is setting those realistic expectations. So just being aware that nothing is really set in stone when it comes to life underwriting, especially when dealing with with the records that you don't have select the full picture of, that our underwriters have to dive deep into to get a bigger picture. So for example, there's no guarantee for an auto-approved simplified or an auto-approved accelerated underwriting application. The same goes for preferred or preferred plus ratings. Those are not guaranteed. So when cases are submitted, when applications are submitted to home office, they are looked at generally as a standard rate, and that does not change until the case is decisioned by either the accelerated underwriting system or the simplified system, or unless underwriting has completed their full rate evaluation. Underwriting is never going to be aware of how clients are quoted, so it's always best, just like Kim was saying, to avoid over promising for the clients. So best practice for prospects, usually quoting at standard, especially because that's how especially that's how underwriting looks at cases when they come in, is at that choice rating. And so just keeping that in mind moving forward. And also another thing that is very important to avoid pitfalls is having accurate client information. That includes the interview as well as the client folder that houses all of the client data. So a lot of times delays may arise when there may be inconsistencies in client contact information in the client folder, especially because the application itself, that's a lot of that data flows in from the client folder. So if the client has an incorrect cell phone number on the client folder and that flows into the application, that can affect the time it takes to get that medical interview done, because Exam One isn't able to call the client because they don't have the right number on file. So then it just takes a little bit of extra work for us to update that and update Exam One. Same thing goes for that email address, because that email address is needed for Exam One to send out that medical interview invite. And if that's incorrect or missing from the client folder, not on the application, then that limits their ability to reach out to the client and make every opportunity available for them to complete that right away. And also, at birth dates, that's also very important, especially when you're dealing with conversions, because age is a factor for conversions, and especially because effective dates need to line up as well when you're converting. So all that to say, just making sure that you have accurate client information in the client folder will help avoid those delays and keep those cases moving smoothly from start to finish. And it'll help avoid write backs. If our production team or underwriting notices something on the application that doesn't look quite right, they'll send out a write back, and just making sure that all of that is okay with help you move that forward with no issues.
Excellent, thank you. Can you please tell us, Andreas, a little bit about binding and talking about price after they make it through that underwriting process? What are some of the best practices that our rep should follow?
Yeah. Binding was touched on a little bit at the beginning there, but binding is very important because of how specific the process is. So when you're considering binding, there's a clear question in the application that relates to binding. So it's a yes/no question. Will this application be bound? If the answer is yes in the application and then it's submitted, at the end, once that application is fully submitted, you'll be prompted to make that first mode of payment, whether that's the monthly mode or quarterly, semi-annually. That mode of premium will be required to pay upon submitting the application if the application is being bound. And if it's not being bound, you don't have to worry about submitting that binding premium. And if it's not being bound, the only time that premium can then be submitted is at the end, after the application has been approved and it has been issued by our production team. And, and so, when you're thinking about binding, there are some rules that need to be followed when considering, and there is a temporary insurance agreement receipt that is out there that outlines the qualifications for binding, because there are some that are very important, specifically dealing with pending applications. So if there are multiple applications out there for the client, and that total underwriting is over that 1 million, then they can't bind on any applications. Also, there is some limitations when it comes to the temporary insurance agreement. And so it goes based off of the max is 500,000 based off of the temporary insurance agreement, but it's based off of whichever is smaller between the application, that's the coverage on the application, and that 500,000. So if the application is over 1 million, the binding is only covered for 500,000, because that's the max that's there. And I think I mentioned that the only other time that premium can be submitted if it's not being bound is at an issue. If it's submitted any other time in between and binding was not selected, it will be refunded to the client until it is issued and they're able to take payment once that rating is approved.
Awesome, thank you. I think Kim has something that she wanted to state.
I just wanted to alert to Christy's question in the chat. Have you heard of any issues with clients trying to complete the medical interview on their cell phones rather than on a desktop through the link?
That's not something that I've considered. I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't really heard anything specific about the difference between mobile versus desktop, but I could see it being. I could see it potentially being an issue. But Jamie, have you possibly heard anything about the difference?
I have heard that sometimes you can't get to like adding a doctor if the doctor's not listed in the drop downs on the mobile version. And that it is possibly easier and more user friendly on a laptop, but it is definitely doable on the mobile device.
Okay. Yeah, Christy, you might just want to, suggest that your clients do it on the desktop until maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not certain what issue they're really having.
I've just had two clients that have gone through two separate situations where they've gone all the way through it and they submit it. It looks like it's all good on their end, but it on our end, it just never comes through. And so we kind of go back and forth like, yep, they've done it. And then once they go and do it on a PC or, a desktop or whatever, then it works. So I was just curious, is there a trick to that so that we can encourage some of them to do it on their mobile? Because it is easier for most of them, or do we know that?
It sounds like that might be something to take offline for a specific issue that's not been widespread yet, not well known. So I believe you. I don't think we have any answers for you on this one quite yet. So
If it's a problem for you, Christy, I would probably just make the recommendation, hey, I've had a couple of clients have difficulty getting the underwriting questions submitted via their cell phone. So in order to prevent this problem, let's go ahead and utilize a laptop or a desktop. So I'd probably just circumvent that entirely. Good to go? All right, Andre. I do know that a lot of really great changes have been happening with our life underwriting recently. Do you have anything in particular that you would like to highlight for us?
Yeah, there's been some buzz around accelerated underwriting. As you all know, we've been able to increase that death benefit up to $1 million. That might have been maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. But later on in the year, there'll be some more information about accelerated underwriting approval being increased from 1 million to 2, and that'll be an exciting enhancement for those that become eligible for accelerated applications. So that's really awesome, and And so, yeah, more details will be coming out about that. Another thing is, not so new anymore, but Index Universal Life is still our newer life product that we offer. It was launched back in March of 2023, and we are starting to finally see more and more IUL applications come through. So we just encourage just building your knowledge of the product, as well as there is a training in order to write for IUL. So just keep that in mind if you're interested. That training is also required in order to even quote the product. But Passport and SharePoint are updated with all of those details. And our product support area, it's more financial product, but our product support area is really, really helpful when it comes to understanding and breaking down IUL illustrations. There's a lot of different moving parts, and they'll help with illustration and breaking down a lot of the terminology that comes with the IULs to help with overall selling on that product. So yeah, those are a couple of things that we have that have been really, really cool and that are coming up for the field.
Andrea,
And
go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna say, I'm so sorry, a few minutes ago I had missed Stacy's hand being up for questions. I just want to make sure. Stacy, do you still have your question that you want to ask while we have Andreas?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the binding. I'm a little confused as to why we would bind something that's and not wait for it just to be approved first.
Well, that's a good question. So binding, it's all about it's all about the what if when it comes to life insurance. So that the underwriting process, especially if it's not simplified or accelerated, then it has to go through full underwriting. There's that time it takes for underwriting to do their evaluation, their rate evaluation, and so binding is just interim coverage for the applicant in the event that something happens to them during that underwriting process, just to protect their life. But of course, if it's not bound, and something does happen before underwriting is completed, before they're approved, then there would be no coverage for the applicant at that time.
Okay, sure, I guess, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the way I always explained it to my clients, Stacy, was I would say, listen, we're done with your application, but I do want to give you the chance to bind it today. If you don't bind it and you walk out of my office and you get hit by a bus or something should happen, until this comes back as approved and you want to finalize everything, just want you to understand that they will still underwrite, and if it was going to be approved, they will still pay out to your beneficiary, so that if something should happen. So I'd always give them the chance to vote, because I would feel terrible if I did not offer that and something did happen before we got to have that discussion again. So that's just the way I always approached it.
And another thing that I like to mention when it comes to binding, since you're collecting that first mode of premium, you won't have to worry about that premium requirement once it's issued at the end, because you already have that. Once they're approved and issued, then you'll all just have to collect those final documents, since you'll have that mode already collected early on.
It's true. Andrea, are there any new forms that we should be aware of?
But the only new form that we have, there's a couple out there, but the main one is the Statement of Health and Delivery Receipt. The form that's showing up on the screen here, it's the older version, so it's a little bit different now. But this is the page that will always be included in your contract, whether that's regardless of what type of plan it is. This form will always be a final requirement. And so what this form has a couple of different functions. So there's the Statement of Health, which is the first function, and it's noted by that yes, no question at the top. It basically asks if there's been any hospitalizations or health changes on the insured since the application has been approved. typically that's a no. If it happens to be a yes, you would of course mark yes and add some additional details. Once you submit, it will go back to underwriting so that they can re-review, reevaluate, and determine if it has to go through additional underwriting. And then the second part is the delivery aspect. So this form is in the contract that is available in the policy documents. And of course, you're delivering that contract and then you're getting the client to sign off on that delivery. And so you have to get their signature and there's no location sign. It says location signed on the screen, but there's no location of first signature isn't required any longer. So it's just the insured signature, the owner's signature, and the agent's signature at the bottom. And there's in the middle of the page now on the updated form, there is a policy section where you can elect to finalize the policy as it was issued with no changes. The second option is for realigning the effective date of the application based on when the owner signs the SHDR. So this is something that is really cool to use when you've got a policy that's been issued at the end of the month and it's starting to flow into the beginning of the month. So you can use the policy date option to realign the date with the new month to avoid collecting 2 months of premium, if that's the case, or but there is one caveat to using that. There's a couple of caveats to using this form. And yes, this is signing after they're approved. This is the form that is in the contract after it is issued. This is the last step before getting the policy into an active and enforced status. And so when you're using the policy date section of the SHDR, there's a couple of caveats. So when it comes to conversions, placements, and GIOs, there are specific policy date guidelines for those application types. And so using that date realignment option will not be an option. Unfortunately, it works well for new business, and also watching with dates. So if the date is being updated, if you're electing to change that date and the client's birth date changes, it's important to be aware of that because that could change premium scheduling. And if that premium adjusts based off of their age changing with the date realignment, a new contract will have to be reissued anyway. So just keeping that in mind. And if it has to be reissued, then you're still having to get the SHDR from the newly reissued contract signed. So a couple of different things to go along with there. But if you have any other questions about this or anything else that I've gone over, case management is always there for you by email or by phone to answer any of those questions and clarify anything that I've gone over today.
Teresa, are there any additional resources that our reps should know about?
A couple of resources that I always like to point out always comes back to life pre-qualification and the life underwriting guide. These are amazing for tackling things like wastage and placement, especially when you're working with specs, because these are resources that you can use to get an idea of how underwriting will look at your client based on different medical impairments they may have, or different aspects as listed on the life pre-qualification worksheet. These resources are available out on Passport and in the form search, but these are very great to get better insight into life underwriting and to get into their brains and sort of understanding how clients are looked at. So this is what I was referring to when I was saying it's good to know at least some general medical information about your clients, your prospects. In order to take that information, you can go back to life underwriting using the life pre-qualification worksheet to get an idea of what a client could potentially be rated as based on some of that health information. There's the life quote email address that's out there, and the cool thing about the worksheet there is that there's a button at the top where you can email that attached the form directly to Life Underwriting. And so Life Underwriting gets that and they respond typically within 1 day. So it's a really good resource to have.
Awesome, thank you so much. So now is the time, before we close out our session today, I would like everyone to give a loud and thunderous round of applause using the react button for Andreas and his time that he has taken with us today. But now's the time, since Andreas is with us, to ask these questions that you have burning in your mind.
Any final questions? Stacy?
Well, they're still signing, the initial application and then other forms later on. Is that how that works?
Yes, yep, the
Correct.
application,
Okay,
the application is separate from the other document, yep.
gotcha.
Anything else while we still have them on the line? Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Jackson, for joining us today and going through so much great information that I know is going to be helpful. And thank you to Nicole for dropping all of those links for us throughout that interview. There's a lot of great resources in there for you guys. So depending on your region, go ahead and save that for yourself on your SharePoint pages. But Andreas, you're free to get back to your good busy day there in case management. I really appreciate you. And I will move on with our session to the next couple things I've got on the docket for us. And we'll just wrap up this party. So thank you again.
Have a good day, everybody.
Definitely. You too. All right, so let's go ahead and jump here. So the Getting Started Life Underwriting Guide located on the resources we're going to drop here. Actually, I think we've already dropped it a few different times, but the Life Level Up resource page, the Getting Started Guide section is going to be really helpful for you, full of language that you can use, as well as just some tips to guide your clients through the underwriting process. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note of that here in just a minute, drop that link again, just to make sure you save it as a favorite. It's going to be super helpful for you. Just a heads up, a little preview. In our next lesson, we'll be discussing policy placement and the final steps of the life sales approach with your clients. So we'll get practice setting the right tone for the meeting and how to help your prospects select the product options, types and writers to be considering for their life insurance. So we're working on all of that tomorrow when we meet again. Stacy, question on that?
Oh, I'm muted. So now a question on that one. I was just kind of going through these links and the statement of health delivery receipt is not opening.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. Sometimes those links get a little bit wonky, and sometimes you'll find that if you click on it again after closing out and trying again, it might work again. So there's a kind of a login process to get into your ID. So just try it a couple of times. If it still doesn't work, let me know in the chat if you would. Okay. So the resources, like I said, the Level Up resource page. So Nicole has dropped a link for that. This is going to be super helpful. We really want you and encourage you to carve out time to get in here and consider how you're going to use these resources to, address your client needs, grow your business. We're not going to we don't have the time really to sit down and do a long walkthrough of this page, but I really encourage you to save it as a favorite in your browser, your Level Up Life page, because it's really a multifaceted resource that can be used for a variety of needs, and you're going to turn to it many times. All right. So I just want to make sure you all have a chance to open that up and save that. It looks like Nicole's also tried to give you the link directed for that. So thank you. So Stacy, you should be looking for the link that Nicole just sent this time for the statement of health delivery. That should work this time. drop me a thumbs up if it's working for you now. Okay. So with that, I want to also chat through your assignment. So we try to give you as much practice as you can into these sessions, but the truth is that you really need to own your own conversation and the words you're going to use. So the only way to fine tune that is just to practice. So my hope for you is that between now and the next time we meet, and we meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central. So at some point this afternoon or tonight, I'm really hoping that you can get some practice in just going over the role play. So we have actually an assignment for you that Nicole, if you could drop the assignment for the role play into the chat for them. This is going to be really helpful for you to just get some practice going through the diet. You saw me and Stephen do it earlier. It does not have to be perfect. I've had I've had reps go through this with their plants, with their dogs, with their spouse. Like, it doesn't have to be an official meeting with their district leader right now, but we really hope that you would get some practice in before tomorrow. Just like a mock interview, how you're going to ask them, hey, what's your debt? What's your income? Just get used to saying that so it becomes second nature, and come tomorrow ready to debrief and give me a couple takeaways. Did it feel awkward? Did you learn something? Did you find some verbiage that worked really well for you? Because the final piece of our process here is to suggest that you get together with your district leader and actually do the role play. When I was a new agent, I went through this with my district leader time and time again. We kind of, for the first 2 months of my agency career, we really went through this until it became second nature to me. So I recommend that you get in your leader's calendar and try to set up the same role play timing to practice, because it's easier to do that with people that want to help you, right? Get that practice in than before you're in front of a real client trying to do that. Okay. So I could drop that in the chat, if Nicole, if you don't have it. It's also probably in the PDC for you. Okay, no worries, not a worry. So then from there, I just want to talk about a Lego, because that is your other chance to practice. Let me drop this PDF into the chat for you first. So this is that assignment that you're going to have to work on. And again, you can make it your own, have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to be grading this. It's just for purposes of your practice and our discussion tomorrow. Okay, so a Lego, we're super excited. I know we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, so hopefully by now you've spent enough time in your sales lab powered by a Lego practicing what you're learning each week with us. Okay, so again, I was a theater kid, so when I would practice for a play or production I was in, before I ever got on the stage